I'm really excited about this because, Torsten, you send out these big PDFs of like all these charts all the time, and people love them. And there's this big like cult thing on Twitter where people tweet out their favorite charts from that. Are you a big fan of it? Are you aware of how much people love your charts online?
So, of course, my charts are mainly for the client base
Sure.
of Deutsche Bank, but I do follow you on Twitter. I've done for many years, and it's a great pleasure to see, of course, everything you're doing. And it's great to have you, of course, here on Bloomberg.
Great.
But the bottom line is, yes, I do know that I have a following, but it's always exciting to debate these things, which is why I'm happy to be here today.
Great. Let's get to the charts, because that's why we're here. All right, so we're going to go through 3 charts that are really, we should be watching before tomorrow. So let's go to the first one. It shows companies that are increasing wages based on the NFIB survey and the increase in the employment cost index. What does this chart tell us?
Yeah, so a very important point is that we have seen a small uptrend in the employment cost index. And the question is, what are companies' plans with wages? And this chart shows you from the NFIB survey that companies are actually planning to raise worker compensation over the next 12 months. So this tells you that companies are planning to raise worker wages. And that's a very important signal because often, as the chart shows, when companies say that they are planning to do something, they actually do it. So that's why the correlation works so well going back in time.
And Torsten, you've been calling for higher wages, though, for a few years. Why is this time going to be different?
So to be precise, we started exactly a year ago. And if you look at the chart again, that was exactly when wages started going up. So we are quite proud to say that we exactly caught the bottom in when wages started ticking higher. And what's now coming along is that many of the other indicators are also showing that same uptrend as predictors of wages. So that's why, obviously, the Fed doesn't target wages, but it's a very, very clear signal that the economy is getting better, and most importantly, the labor market is getting better.
All right, let's get to chart number 2, job vacancies. And the number of job vacancies are now basically at their pre-crisis average. Or, I'm sorry, the quit rate. Sorry, there's people quitting their jobs. Basically at the pre-crisis average. Why does this matter?
Yeah, so this comes from the June survey, which also has vacancies. But this chart is very important. It shows you how many people voluntarily quit their job every month. And as you can see, the chart shows that a few years ago, very few people voluntarily quit their job because people were very worried during the recession of losing their job and there were no other options. But today, you're basically back at the quit level that you had in 2006 and 2005. So that means that people are quitting their jobs voluntarily to a much higher frequency than they used to. So that's a good sign that people are much more optimistic about the outlook, both for themselves and for their economic outlook for their finances.
Great. And the third chart is one that you rarely see. It shows the number of days that companies take to fill the average job. And this is another one, absolutely surging, nearly 27 days to fill a job. What does this chart tell you?
So this shows you exactly that if you look at where this was in 2006, it took only 23 days to fill a job. Now it takes a longer time to fill a job than it did in 2006. And in 2006, the economy was overheating. So today we have a labor market that, at least according to this chart, is more difficult to find the right workers. So this is a very important signal also of how strong the labor market actually is.
And I have a special chart that I want to bring in. It's my oil chart. It means that rig counts actually matter. If you take a look at oil rigs here in the U.S., they're down about 60% from that high that we saw back in 2014. What does this do to the jobs market?
So it's certainly true, as the ADP also said today, that there's some jobs in the energy sector that have been falling. But the way I think about that is that in the S&P 500, there are 10 sectors. One of those sectors is energy, and that's not doing particularly well. But the remaining 9 sectors, they've been doing very well, as both the ADP data has been showing. And the added issue about this chart here is that if you look at production of oil, has actually been trending up throughout this period when the number of rigs has been falling. So in that sense, the number of rigs is not as helpful to understand what's going on relative to actual production.
Thank you, Deutsche Bank's Torsten Slok. We'll be watching all these things tomorrow.